World War II movies tend to be some of the more popular military movies out there. We've seen movies tackle this dark period in world history in numerous ways. Films like Schindler's List tackle this subject from a serious angle, and also we've seen other movies like Valkyrie, Pearl Harbor, and Saving Private Ryan produce films in a more entertaining fashion. In addition, there's been movies like Inglourious Basterds that are quasi-fictional but still popular with moviegoers. In 2016, the film Anthropoid was made. The film details the true story of two Czechoslovakian soldiers, Josef Gabcik and Jan Kubis, as they parachute into Nazi Occupied Prague, Czechoslovakia, and prepare to assassinate Reinhard Heyrich, the third-ranking highest member of the Nazi Party. The film does an incredible job portraying what life was really like in Nazi-occupied Prague and just how one slip-up could lead to you and your family being executed. Cillian Murphy, who plays Josef, and Jamie Dornan, who plays Jan, are both terrific in the movie. I think in general, this film has three main parts to it when you think about it. There's the preparation for the assassination, the actual assassination itself, and then also the aftermath. Jan and Josef parachute into Czechoslovakia, and in the first few minutes of the film, we see just how difficult this mission is going to be. Minutes into the movie, they discover some of their contacts have betrayed them. Jan and Josef are forced to kill one of the men and flee. This really helps set the stage for the movie, as they have to be extremely careful around who they can trust. As Jan and Josef meet other leaders of the resistance, they are soon introduced to two women, Marie and Lenka. The women help the men with their covers as they plan the assassination attempt. Both men develop relationships with the women in the movie, and it's not clear how historically accurate this is, but I can say much of the movie in general is pretty accurate. Overall, I thought the preparation part was pretty well done, but probably not as good as the next two parts. The assassination scene in this film is great. Now, I'm not a World War II expert, but based on everything I read around this scene, and after it occurred, after I watched the movie, it seems to mimic the actual events very closely. On May 27th, 1942, the two men and several others stationed themselves at a hairpin turn where they knew Heyrich and one other driver would be traveling. Their plan was simple: stall the car up, and Josef would shoot the car with a Sten gun. In the film, just like real life, Josef's gun actually jammed, and luckily Jan was able to toss a grenade. Jan was supposed to throw the grenade into the car, but it actually fell under the rear axle, nevertheless wounding Heyrich and ultimately killing him. Now, the men left the scene believing that they had failed because Heyrich got up and started shooting at the men. But just days later, on June 4th, Heyrich, only 37 years old at the time, died. It was reported he was doing better for quite some time, but then he developed sepsis, which induced a coma and ultimately led to his death. In sum, the assassination attempt in this film was extremely well done. The acting around it was terrific between everyone. Now, the third act, the aftermath, was equally done as well. Eventually, the men holed up in a church while the Nazis clamped down the city and began murdering innocent civilians. Throughout the movie, we see the determination and courage displayed by these men. Of the two main characters, Jan and Josef, Josef is more intense, absolutely determined to carry out the mission regardless of what happens to him. He's a proud Czech soldier and willing to die, no questions asked. Jan struggles with anxiety during the movie, and he marries Marie several months after meeting her. Jan hopes to have a life after the mission, and he really just wants normalcy. Now, interestingly, based on the scenes before the movie, We expect Josef to be the one to complete the mission, but actually it's Jan who does it. In the final scene of the movie, the men are holed up in a crypt of the church, and the Nazis have closed in. And here as a viewer, it just makes you sad as you realize there's going to be no escape for these men. If they did escape, they would just be tortured to death. And bravely, the men were able to hold off the Nazis for around 6 hours before all being killed. The men were discovered after Karel Kurta, a resistance fighter, ratted out the men to the Nazis. He would tell the Nazi officials of the Moravec family who sheltered Jan and Josef. Soon the Gestapo stormed the apartment, and Miss Moravec swallowed a cyanide pill in order to avoid the torture. Now her son Ada was then tortured and eventually revealed the location of the church. All of this is historically correct, and it's important to point out a few things here. One, Ada was really tortured and gave up the location. He was killed after giving up the location along with his dad, his wife, Ada's wife, and their family. And one certainly can't blame Ada for this. Karel Kurta, the rat who sold out the resistance, would survive this whole incident. I was actually surprised in watching this that the Nazis just didn't kill him as well, but he actually survived it. And then once the war ended, he was caught, he was tried and executed, and he would state when he was under trial that he actually did it for the money. Now, one thing that can't be understated is the historical significance of this assassination and really the courage and bravery these men displayed. This happened 2 years before the Nazis' surrender. Keep in mind, before the assassination in 1942, Heyrich was supposed to head to France and quell the remaining resistance there, strengthen the country. You know, this raises all sorts of interesting questions. Would he have been able to win the Normandy invasion 2 years later when that happened? Now, in November 1942, the Battle of Stalingrad in Russia happened, which turned the momentum of the war. It's possible Heyrich could have changed this decision and others and really altered the course of history. In general, this was just an excellent war or military movie. Now, it might not be as entertaining as Pearl Harbor or Saving Private Ryan or as dramatic as Schindler's List, but make no mistake, the movie is excellent, and it really just highlights how tough and scary life was during these times. In addition, just how evil and ruthless the Nazis were, willing to kill anyone who they just felt might be even have the slightest connection to these events. The movie featured great acting all around. The sets looked incredible, really giving the feel of the 1940s, not to mention the costumes that people wore also looked good as well, or the clothing. I really enjoyed the movie. It's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it, especially if you really don't know the whole story and you want to get really all the details around it. I thought the movie was pretty historically accurate based on what I read about it. You know, I'm not a World War II expert, but I did spend some time reading about the actual events after watching the movie. And it's not like a lot of movies where there's just all these liberties that the directors and writers take. This one was definitely close to the real events. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.